Hey folks, what's up? Lex here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Turbo Grafx 16 Mini console. Now there was a little bit of confusion as to when this was actually going to be released, because this got delayed due to COVID-19, and then Amazon Japan started selling the US version of this mini console and shipping it wherever. So I decided to hold on to my pre-order and just wait for Amazon US to release it. I was in no big hurry. In fact, I was wondering if I was going to regret my decision to get this console because I had no real prior experience with the Turbo Grafx 16. When I was growing up, this was not in my area at all. I grew up in a small town in Northern California, and from what I understand, this Turbo Grafx 16 console, not this mini one, but the console itself when it was originally released, was marketed in places like New York and San Francisco, like bigger areas, and of course if you were around those areas you could probably get one, but in my small area we were lucky to find Nintendo stuff. And over the years I really didn't hear much about it, and it wasn't until the age of YouTube when I started seeing videos from guys like Pat the NES Punk and Johnny at Happy Console Gamer talk about their experience with the Turbo Grafx 16 growing up that I understood there was a nice collection of games for this really awesome system. But of course, even if I did have access to it back then, I wasn't going to be able to afford to get the console and the attachments or the Turbo Express and all that kind of stuff. So it's really just something that was out of reach for me personally. And now with this mini system, I'm able to check out a lot of the games for the system, including a lot of PC Engine games, so it was a really enticing offer. So what I've done for this review is I've picked a handful of games that I really enjoyed, because there are some games that are not so good on this collection, and there are some games that are just kind of okay, but there are actually quite a few games that I enjoyed playing and want to go back to. So let's take a look. The Turbo Grafx 16 Mini offers a couple of different filters that you can use to kind of change the aspect ratio and add CRT lines. There's even a Turbo Express filter, which is really cool if nothing else. Just like the other mini consoles that we've seen, you can also save your progress in one of 4 save slots for each game. And you can also change the background display that appears while you play the game if you pick a smaller aspect ratio. There's some other options to mess around with if you want, but those are the most important ones. Now, I've never seen an actual Turbo Grafx 16 in person, but from what I understand, this mini console is about half the size of the regular console. It's got a power switch on the front where the game card would go if it were an actual legitimate Turbo Grafx 16. And you have USB ports on the front to plug in your controllers. In the back, there's a panel that is removable to insert the HDMI and power cables. Now, at first, I had no clue on how to get this back panel off, but once I learned that you just have to pull up on the back, it was actually really simple. The controllers have your usual D-pad, your 2 face buttons, a start and select button, and 2 turbo switches, which actually really come in handy for a lot of the shooters on this collection. One thing I really like about the controller is how long the controller cord is. I mean, this thing will reach plenty far. And while people would probably still prefer to have a wireless controller, this is still pretty good. I don't want to get into the official count for the games because there are multiple titles on here, depending on if you switch to PC Engine, that are the same, but there are quite a few games on here. And there's even an M rating on this, I'm guessing because of Snatcher, for partial nudity. So let's check out some of the games that I really enjoyed off of this collection. I'm a sucker for a good pinball game, and Alien Crush is a very good pinball game. It's got this HR Giger design all throughout. The contrasting colors make it very easy to tell where your ball is at all times. The ball physics are solid for how old the game is, and the bonus levels are fun to play. I really had a hard time moving on from this game so that I could try all the others. Blazing Lasers is a fairly simple shooter that crowds the screen just enough to be exciting, but not too much to be overwhelming. Smooth gameplay and cool power-ups. What it lacks in uniqueness, it makes up for in polish. I've heard Johnny over at Happy Console Gamer talk about military madness quite a few times, and I can definitely see why. I'm a turn-based strategy fan myself, and this one is solid. It's not the deepest turn-based game I've played, not even close, but for how early it came out, it's still a lot of fun to play. You just play mission after mission, and while I didn't get a chance to try it out, there is multiplayer, which is probably the real draw here. Neutopia is a Zelda clone, but at least it's a good Zelda clone. Charming graphics, smooth gameplay, and it's actually easier to figure out than Zelda, for me at least. I didn't play Neutopia 2 because I wanted to play through Neutopia first, but I look forward to coming back to this one. Anyone who knows me well knows that I love horror flicks. So when you put a Jason Voorhees ripoff in a game, smashing monsters against the wall with a 2x4, you have my attention. It's a very simple game, but I love the aesthetic. Ease is actually one of the few games on the Turbo Grafx Mini that I've played before. I have the Steam version for PC, so going back to simpler graphics is a bit of a bummer, but Ease, with its unique battle system, is still an easy game to pick up and play. A game I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did is Bonk's Revenge. It's a game that keeps you moving at an excellent pace. The art style may not be for everyone, but I enjoy the large sprites and solid platforming. Soldier Blade plays almost exactly like Blazing Lasers, so same thoughts basically apply here. Really cool intro screen, great shooter gameplay, awesome sprites. I love Bomberman. So of course, I love Bomberman 93. The sense of progression from getting power-ups over time, the strategy of bomb placement, and the frantic nature of trapping enemies only to get yourself trapped has always been a big draw for me. There's also Bomberman 94 on the PC Engine side, but they're both good stuff. Lords of Thunder is an excellent side-scrolling shooter with a heavy metal soundtrack and fast-paced action. This is also a duo game, which means it ran off of a card and CD. It's pretty difficult, but it's just a matter of learning the patterns of the enemies. The ability to buy upgrades at a shop is a nice touch, and this is definitely a game I want to beat. Rondo of Blood is the only game on the Turbo Grafx Mini I've played all the way through. Rondo of Blood was remade and released for the PSP under the name Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles, and I beat that game during my lunch breaks at GameStop over a decade ago. I loved it then, and I love it now. It may not be my favorite in the series, but it's still a great action platformer to run through. Aldean's is another side-scrolling shooter. This one reminds me of a Metroid-style shooter. I really love the level design, although there is some slowdown further in that can get annoying. Seirei Senshin Spriggan, if I'm saying that correctly. I don't have much to say about this one other than it's another solid shooter. The next Spriggan game on the system changes it up a bit though. Spriggan Mark II is very much like Lords of Thunder. Being able to switch the direction of your character is a nice function that adds a lot of dynamics into the gameplay. Unfortunately, this one has a lot of story mixed in, and that requires an understanding of Japanese to really grasp what's going on. Still, this is a must-play. Star Parodier. This may be my favorite shooter on this whole collection, probably in large part because of how charming it is. Star Parodier takes PC Engine mascots and turns them into starships. The colors of each stage are vibrant and the characters are adorable, even when they're trying to blow you to pieces. The difficulty also ramps up at a nice pace. If you have kids who are wanting to try out a shooter, this is the game for them. And finally, the last game I want to talk about, Ginga Fuke Densetsu Sapphire, or abbreviated to Sapphire by most. This one is one of the more notorious games for the system. I've heard about how expensive this game is, and to be honest, it was going to be nearly impossible to live up to the hype. From what I've played, it's a solid game. You have different ships to choose from, each with their own attributes and weapons. Although most of the game is in 2D, there are polygonal enemies that come in, which give the game something unique to tout. There are some games on the system that are just really not good, and there are some games on the system that are just okay. And there are some games on the PC Engine side that you really need Japanese or a translation guide. I really wanted to play through Snatcher, but I don't know if I want to try to tackle it with a translation guide yet. And that's going to do it for my review of the Turbo Grafx 16 Mini console. I really like it. I really am happy that I stuck with my pre-order, and check this out because I know I'm going to be getting my money's worth trying to beat a lot of these shooters and all these great games on this console. I highly recommend picking it up if you yourself are curious.